Captain Picard. Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
My Readier Room.
Hello, and welcome to the Readier Room, the only Star Trek The Next Generation rewatch podcast with stories from the set itself by the people themselves who were on said set. My name is Mitchell Mells, Chief Consultant Services at Paramount back in the 1980s, and with me is my life partner, Brandon Hobbs. Brandon, how are we doing on this rainy, not yet afternoon?
Wonderful as always, Mitch. Ready to talk Trek.
Is it, are you doing wonderful because of the rain?
No, I'm doing wonderful because of Trek.
Ah, yeah. Trek always puts me in a certain Trek mood.
Yeah.
Easy to stay on track when you're ready for Trek.
Oh, absolutely. I think in terms of weather, it goes from worst to best.
Mm-hmm.
Rain,
Mm-hmm.
cloudy,
Mm-hmm.
sunny,
Mm-hmm.
Trek.
I like it. No, but where does snow fit into the situation?
Snow?
Snow.
We live in California, Mitch.
Well, I mean, we can still enjoy snow. Surely you've heard of it.
When was the last time you saw snow?
Well, I think we watched The Naked Now, which had snow. Like, they went into, like, a frozen section of, like, another ship, and everything was snowy.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Right.
That is what snow is like.
Exactly.
It does just kind of like take on to you, right?
Yeah, and you kind of freeze in suspended animation.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
That's just slightly below Trek then.
Okay, I like it. I have a similar weather Trek power rankings. I think I would put Sleet a little above Trek at the top.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Sleet.
I do appreciate kind of like the how painful it is
Yes.
when you're outside and
you
kind of being bombarded by it.
You absolutely feel it.
Yeah.
Unlike anything else, and Sleet is definitely more painful than Star Trek Next Generation Season 1, so it has to win out.
Only barely, though.
Only barely. It is close. All right, so that will take us to this week's question of the week, which comes from a fan named Sean, who apparently lives in Ireland. Sean says, top of the morning to you. I'm a big fan of the Readier Room. I've been an OG listener since episode 3. I'm also a big fan of podcasting, and I want to start my own podcast about vintage dolls. My question is, what equipment do you use to make your podcast? I think it'd be very helpful to know. Readier yours, Sean. Well, Sean, thank you for sticking with us from the beginning. I know it's been a long road to outlast all the other Star Trek The Next Generation rewatch podcasts, but we're here. And, I think that you might be building this up in your mind to be more difficult than it is, making a podcast, that is. We're just a couple of guys. We never worked on, like, the technical end of things that, would have all this knowledge of audio recording and equipment and stuff. We don't have that knowledge. And we're just probably, in this regard, a regular guy just like you. So we were making the podcast. We're like, oh, we're going to need some microphones. We went off to some of our audio friends, and they gave us, like, the microphones they just stopped using after they upgraded to the latest ones. So, pretty good stuff. And I think that if you're able to just borrow any equipment, like any kind of, high-end microphone you can get from somebody, it would probably do you well, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you can't forget about mixing, right?
Yeah.
My buddy over there who's a recording engineer, he agreed to help us out by mixing our audio for us. I think it really adds a lot to the show. In fact, I don't think I would even consider uploading if it wasn't thoroughly mixed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, like, editing the podcast together. Like, once you have the levels on it, it's got to be edited. You cut out the dead time and stuff. My friend, he was able to help us out. He's an editor. If you're trying to use the same stuff that he uses, I think he uses Pro Tools to edit the podcast. So, if you can just get your hands on a copy of Pro Tools, it'll be pretty easy for you. So it's really, really not so difficult, I think, to make a podcast, really, if you're trying and you're really passionate about it. So, don't give up on your dreams, Sean, out there. You want to talk about your vintage dolls? I know you can do it. And it's pretty easy to build a following too, right? Just reach out to, the community that you fostered at your previous job, and they'll latch on and they'll listen to your stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is just so simple. You upload a couple of videos to YouTube, and before you know it, you're getting thousands of views.
Exactly. If you're not, it's probably just a lack of effort on your part. So really, just try a little harder, and you'll get it. Yeah. So, I think that's a great sentiment. A lot of people do need to hear that too. Exactly. Some people just need the kick in the pants, and for Sean, I hope this is yours. Your kick in your pants.
Good luck, Sean.
Good luck. So that'll take us to today's episode, because we'd like to discuss episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation here, and this week is no different. And the title of this week's episode is Coming of Age. I got it at the last second. I was really searching my head to put that together.
Good job. What number is it?
Oh, baby. That's got to be like 16 or 17.
I was gonna say 18.
Now you're just doing that on purpose. There's no way.
No, I swear to God, it's 18.
No way. It's got to be 17. We've consistently aimed one higher, so if you feel like it's strongly 18, then I feel even more strongly that it's 17.
Okay, well, it's 17 then.
All right, and there's no way that we'll be proven wrong once we finish recording.
Of course, I mean, there is a science to this, so
exactly.
So this episode falls under the subcategory of a guy comes aboard the Enterprise that everyone has to hate, right?
Yeah, I don't know why this is such a well that is returned to this often, but
and it almost feels undeserved.
Right. Has there ever been an admiral where people are like, yeah, he's a great credit to the Federation. He's such a pleasure to work with.
Right. Well, I mean, this is one of Picard's friends coming on board the Enterprise, but everyone's still somehow unhappy about everything that's going on.
Picard himself is unhappy. He's like, we're good friends. Tell me what's going on. And his friend's like, no. Right.
So the entire Enterprise is forced to suspend all operations and jump through hoops, just because this guy thinks there might be a conspiracy, which when you go back and watch this episode after knowing what the conspiracy is, it's even worse.
Oh yeah. There's the end of this plot thread. There's been several times where otherwise good plots have been scuttled by lackluster climaxes and endings, but this one I think is just the most vexing. Of why did I have to sit through this? But there's even before that, it just feels like there's always needless antagonism on the part of the people visiting the Enterprise.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no reason for them to act the way they're acting. What's the commander's name?
Remick.
Yeah. Remick has no reason to be acting as standoffish as he does.
Right, he's just a dick. And you know what? It's not even just him. Picard and Riker get in on it. There's this one part where Picard and Riker are like talking in the Readier Room, and Riker's asks, what's going on? Can you tell me? And Picard's like, no, I can't. And Riker's like really frustrated because he's the first officer and he should know everything.
Right.
And he leaves the room, and then Remick's like, oh, Riker, I want to talk to you. And Riker's like, fuck off, I'm gonna storm out of here. And he just like yells at him for no real reason. I guess the assumption is that Riker's too much of a loose cannon to respect his superiors. I don't know.
I don't know. He gets very emotional for some reason.
Right, and there's been plenty of times where, maybe later in the series, where characters have those moments where they're kind of being stifled by authority, but they don't just throw temper tantrums. It tends to be more smartly written than that.
And you would think someone, who's a commander, second on the ship, would be a little more, responsible. Right. Than to like disrupt an investigation. And this actually applies to Remek's, I guess you might call, interrogation of Riker later on, where he's extremely irresponsible, and kind of, it almost seems like he's trying to obfuscate Picard's involvement with whatever Remek thinks he's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not cooperative at all.
It's like, and he starts off, he's just standing there. He's like, I'm not even going to sit down. And Remek's like, all right, well, we'll do this anyway. If you want to stand, we'll do it standing. And Riker's like, all right, I'll sit down. Whatever. Like,
right.
Moody kid.
He does the alpha kind of leg over the chair thing. Gets real close to his face.
Kiss.
Almost. And I actually have down on my notes Remek. I thought Remek looked familiar, but I guess TNG had this thing where we consistently hired kind of ineffectual, balding, effete men to play the guest stars.
It's weird. It's weird how often the guest stars are balding. I don't know if the standards they must have changed from under my nose, but he. And they're like not even old guys. He's supposed they refer to him, I think, as a young man at some point. I thought he had been in a previous episode, but I guess not. I barely remember working with the guy actually, but did you know he won an award for a play he wrote? Really? That he wrote? So he's a writer.
Then he
actor.
wrote, Kentucky Cycle,
Huh.
Pulitzer, he won a Pulitzer.
That's a prestigious award.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I mean, he was only in this episode, in the penultimate episode of the season, so not a lot of time working with him, but lot of staff shakeups going on with the production of this episode.
Oh yeah,
I know. We had Mike directing, which was his first time directing a TNG episode, and his only time actually, because I mean, he had some misgivings with the director's wheelchair. Right?
He didn't like it when we told him that it was mandatory.
It was mandatory, yeah, of course. So he didn't come back to Trek until well into DS9's run, if I remember correctly. But even more importantly, starting with this episode, we had Maurice finally taking over as showrunner instead of Gene, and I think we'd all kind of been waiting for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, all the drama that Gene caused behind the scenes, it was it didn't happen a moment too soon.
Right. So he didn't intend to take it over indefinitely, of course. I mean, publicly. So he'd sent Gene and his wife on vacation to sort of, try to get the show back on track, right? What the audience does not know, and I don't know, I hope I'm not implicating anyone here, right? He'd actually paid a pretty hefty sum from the show's budget to have Gene and his wife assassinated.
This wasn't just his idea. It was kind of like the collective backroom thoughts that everybody had. Right.
I think, I mean, we weren't in on it, but when we had heard of it, I think we were in agreement, of course, that was probably the best path to take to kind of get the show back on track. But as the audience knows, Gene did not get assassinated. And to this day, no one but Maurice knows why Gene made it back alive. Maybe the guy Maurice hired was a Trekkie or something. I don't know. But,
that would be a bizarre twist of fate.
I mean, it's the only thing I could see saving it. He did come back pretty changed, though.
I was happy to leave the old Gene behind in more ways than one.
Well, yeah, I mean, we didn't have to deal with him as much from this point on, I guess. Well, I mean, only because anytime you put him in a room with LeVar, he would just kind of break down, and you couldn't run a show like that. Right. And we couldn't get rid of LeVar. I mean, him being what he was, all the red tape it would have taken to kind of get rid of him, right? So, so Maurice kind of just took the position.
Well, it kind of worked out for LeVar to be this this ward that kept Gene away. You ask anybody on the set, who would you rather be around, Gene or LeVar, and pretty clear winner, LeVar. I don't think anybody wanted to work with Gene, whereas LeVar was, inoffensive at best. Yeah. So
yeah, definitely.
All's well that ends well, I like to say.
Yeah. It was a nice change of pace. So we got this we got this episode about after, what is this, the we had a little break, and then we're dealing with kids again. After our child-centric episode like 2 episodes ago, right?
Right. Well, these are kids, quote unquote.
Quote unquote.
Some of the actors were age appropriate. Obviously, Will Wheaton is of the right age. I think the girl that he meets at the exam, Oleana, she looked relatively young enough to convincingly play this role. But there's another guy back on the Enterprise, the guy who inevitably hijacks the shuttle. I think his name's Kurland, who is he's supposed to be Wesley's peer, and he looks like, I don't know, late 20s, like a
very obviously in his 20s.
Yeah, and it's bizarre to be sold this as a viewer, and it could have been worse. The first drafts of the script had, anytime he referred to his father, used the word daddy to say it. That was extremely awkward once we saw the actor who had been cast for the role. I think Gene wanted to keep it in, but he lost on that one. Thank God. But it is strange because there's his pivotal scene. He's in a shuttle that he hijacked, and it's a disaster, and he's panicking, and he's saying lines that are kind of like how a child would react to crisis.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do this. I'm gonna die. Oh no, I'm helpless. I can't do anything. And it's just this fully grown man who stepped out of the womb of the Enterprise.
The whole conceit of that scene is, I appreciated Picard's very cool direction there. I liked that for Picard. Everything else with that scene was very silly.
I don't know what purpose it served, though. Okay, we want Picard to impress the guy that's investigating him, but as we learn, the whole thing of this investigation is because they already really like Picard. So what purpose does this scene serve?
Well, see, that's another kind of almost a red herring again in this episode.
Yeah, where, you can't just throw red herrings into every episode.
Right. I mean, so the whole conceit was we're supposed to be worried because this reflects poorly on Picard because his shuttle was unguarded. Yes. And we think the auditor here is has it out for him. So his cool and collected demeanor in directing Kurland to, I guess, skim the atmosphere of this planet somehow is it's supposed to be a win.
Sense.
Yeah, debatably, but it is supposed to be a win, right? For us as the audience, for Picard, kind of, like a fuck you to the auditor. But yes, when you go back and look at it, having seen the episode, it is kind of silly.
Well, the auditor also gets the last laugh within that scene because they're talking, and he's like, "Wasn't discipline part of this boy's education?" And Picard's like, "I'll be sure," or maybe it's Riker, I don't really remember who. I'll be sure to remind him of that, in the dressing down that he's going to get when he comes back. And then the auditor's like, "Well, I'll put that in my report," just kind of persnickety. Well, I'm telling on you anyway. And to me, it read as him coming out ahead in that situation.
Really? I don't know. I felt like, Picard kind of grew his balls back and felt good about that whole interaction. I liked it a lot.
You liked it a lot?
I did, yeah. I really liked that scene.
Really? Wow. I thought it was...
Well, I do agree in retrospect it was silly.
I know, even before I knew the ending of the episode, I wasn't really on board for it.
Well, Mitch, I guess you're just smarter than me, aren't you?
Well, yes, but it's not about that.
But really, it was interesting to see Picard deal with authority in this episode, like an authority that he can't really challenge.
Right. I think this is the first time that comes up, because it comes up throughout the series, but
it does.
Yes, that is an interesting dynamic. But I'm not a fan of the temper tantrum throwing childish Riker. It's like, I can't do what I want to do. I'm gonna storm into the elevator.
I do think, at this point we've kind of come to terms with the fact that this is his character, though. He's hot-headed and he's impulsive and he kind of does what he wants. But it does make sense, even though that's not really what Riker becomes, I think, once the characters kind of get solidified going forward.
I must be colored by later in the series, because to me it just sounds, or he comes off as artificially hot-headed, whereas every time he's made a brash decision, I've never once thought like, oh, that's Riker. I've always just thought, why is Riker, of all people, doing this explicitly? And I just think I'm failing to divorce the later characterization of him from the development in this season only.
No, I think that's true, and I think that's definitely fair, and it is lazily written. There's no reason for him to be acting that way. There's no reason for him to be doubting Picard in the way he does, So,
right. Yeah, if he trusts Picard so much, you would think it would suffice for Picard to say, it's like, Riker, I would tell you, but I'm under explicit orders. My hands are tied. I can't. And Riker probably wouldn't be thrilled about that, but he wouldn't, again, storm off like a child.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, it does just read as kind of like Riker trying to, flex his power on the ship.
Right.
Which is not very, very not Trek to me.
Yeah. These kind of internal, not just power struggles, but emotionally driven conflicts aren't super science fiction, I think. It's like, oh man, I hate my boss. My boss is such a jerk. He doesn't listen to me. He doesn't tell me anything. It's like, is that the type of storyline we need on Star Trek?
Right. I will say, though, that one thing I did like about the whole Curlin bit is I do kind of like it when it brings us down to earth just a little bit, and the idea of not getting into school,
right,
the school that you wanted, it's relatable enough, and it is nice in this series where all this kind of fantastical stuff is happening that you do get familiar conflicts like this that you can relate to, and it's really, I guess the difference there is it's really no one's fault, right? It's kind of just it's your own internal struggle, right?
Right. That's what Picard says to Wesley Crusher at the end of the episode. But I think that if they had written it to frame the relationship of Wesley and Kurland, and then also Wesley and the Benzite later on, where both of those two kind of have this it's not like a rivalry with Wesley, but Wesley takes the spot that Kurland would have had, and then the Benzite ultimately takes the spot that Wesley could have had, but he feels broken up about it because of Wesley kind of helping him get there, and exploring those two similar yet different trajectories that Wesley finds himself on through the lens of those two different characters might have been an interesting way to approach this episode. But the Kurland stuff ends up feeling vestigial because it's isolated to almost entirely this scene where he is only used to establish Picard's competence.
Yeah, it absolutely serves the other plot in this episode. And I don't even know what the A plot and the B plot is here.
Yeah, which is which. It's coming of age, and Wesley's probably the one coming of age, not Picard. So,
right. So I guess that would be the A plot. What did you think of Wesley in this episode? Because I appreciated his cool new haircut.
Yeah, he was hip. I didn't have any problems with Wesley.
Yeah, I thought for being a Wesley, I think I might have said this about another episode before, but I think this might be the first Wesley episode that I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, it's Wesley acts pretty naturally. He doesn't just come out of nowhere to save the day when nobody else could, and him helping other students that he might be in direct competition with doesn't feel like it's there just to show how good of a character he is, but rather it just feels like an organic thing that he would do.
Yeah, it feels like a part of his character, which is nice. It's nice to see something organic,
right,
in terms of Wesley's character. Very, very nice. I liked a lot of the stuff going down on the school. I liked the set. Thought it was very cool.
Yeah, I don't know why and I wrote this in my notes. I don't know why the Academy apparently selects students via a reality TV show, where there can be only one winner, rather than just taking everybody who is very clearly, able to get in.
Competent. I wrote a similar thing. How does Starfleet have enough personnel if it's this difficult to get into the Academy?
Right. They compete
which
in
I
groups
assume,
of 4?
At that point, yeah, not only is it a waste of time in terms of like selecting, but how long does it take to get this through the Academy? 2 years, yeah. I think. It just, are you kidding me? How do they staff their starships? It's ridiculous. So I did take umbrage with that. Yes.
Umbrage has been called.
I've called umbrage. His competitors, though. Let's talk about them, because you have the fish guy.
I want to talk about the fish guy, the Benzite.
That's funny because I want to talk about the other two, but you go ahead about the fish guy.
Well, I at first I looked at it, the Benzite, and I'm like, well, this kind of looks stupid. But I really like the design of that alien race. And I don't know if they're from the original series. Don't talk to me about the original series. I don't care. But that design is just the addition of that stupid mist thing. It opens up volumes of doors that are like, I want to know more. What is this? It makes sense, but I want to know why.
Yeah, I do. That mist thing was a very, very cool little flourish, I guess, that the prop department made at the last minute.
Right.
Just amazing stuff, and it's incredible the things that happen at the last minute like that. It really is, and it just brings the whole thing together.
Somebody takes apart a humidifier, and Trek history is made.
So yeah, suddenly you've got an entire race. Yeah, beautiful stuff. I really appreciated that too. The human girl, however, had no idea what to do with her face the entire time.
Terrible actress.
Yeah, I did write this quote down. it's a good thing you're cute, Wesley, or you could be really obnoxious after he beat her at the test.
Right.
She sounds like someone you might find on Twitter nowadays.
Well, I thought that Wesley
Constantly.
got done dirty there. He wasn't being obnoxious there. She asked him a question.
No, he wasn't.
She's like, "Oh, Wesley, how did you find the answer?" And he's like, "Well, I thought about it."
So what she said was, to paraphrase, "You guys are so lucky having it come so easy to you." And Wesley says, "It doesn't come easy. I had to study," which is, like I said, this feels like every interaction you have on Twitter nowadays.
It's true. And her delivery of that line, "You're lucky you're cute, otherwise you'd be obnoxious." I have no idea what emotion she was going for, because it's not scathing, it's not it's not mean, it's not even sarcastic.
It's kind of exasperated.
Not even. To me, it's just like lightly positive is how I would describe her delivery.
Well, I think it needed to be that way in order to. Well, no, it didn't. It didn't. I was going to say
in order to stay within her range as an actress.
No, in order to facilitate the punchline where Wesley says, "Did you hear what she said about me? I'm cute." But it could also have been funny if she was completely scathing and horrible to him.
Yeah, I think that would have been funnier.
It probably would have been. It probably would have been. Yeah, and then we get to the Vulcan. We have a Vulcan in this episode.
Trek alert! Woo, Vulcan!
Woo, Trek fans! Woo! And so the inclusion of the Vulcan in this episode, this was part of like an advertising campaign. I guess to appeal to the core fan base of Star Trek.
Make Trek again.
Yeah, make it more Trek-like, if you will. So a few weeks prior to the production of this episode, the marketing team had conducted a couple street surveys, right? Questions were pretty standard. Had you seen TNG on TV? What did you think of the characters? That kind of stuff.
Standard marketing procedure.
Usual stuff. So imagine their surprise when something like 40% of the people who identified as Trek fans had no idea that TNG was at all related to Star Trek, which is disastrous.
Right.
It's insane.
I mean, the next generation of what? What did you think it was?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It boggles the mind. But so a couple of the reasons they cited were, obviously the absence of Dr. Spock, characters not doing the funny hand thing,
right,
and too much sex.
All of these things were key to the original series, or the lack of them in the last case.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So being that we couldn't do anything about the last one, we felt, the Spock thing's an easy fix, right? Just add pointy ears to one of the extras and make sure she gets in the TV spots. So that's how we ended up with a Vulcan in this episode. And unsurprisingly, she has very few lines, doesn't really do anything.
But she was there, and if you looked at the screen at this time or you tuned in, you would see a Vulcan, and you would know it was Star Trek.
Right. Exactly. And our ratings did go up. It was a big success.
I think one of the cut scenes that didn't end up making it in the final cut was showing her doing the Vulcan hand signal. I don't even know what to call it. Where you have the gap between your two fingers. The funny hand thing, as our audiences.
The funny hand thing, yeah. We did intend to include that. I don't know why it got cut. I mean, obviously, we were not in the editing department, so we have no idea what really went on there.
I think at the time it was being confused for like a white power symbol, that gesture. So it would have been more controversy than it was worth, even if we, everybody knew on set that it was just that was Star Trek. But public at large at the time, and without social media, you couldn't clear these things up, and the rumors would just spread.
Right.
So
it is funny how much this kind of stuff escapes you over the years. But yeah, I think that might have been why we didn't have a Vulcan to begin with.
Right, because you have those two things so inextricably linked. It's like, I see the Vulcan, I want the funny hand thing. It's what happens in every audience member's mind. But it's at this point where we enough was enough. we were in such dire straits that we had to break those two apart and just have the Vulcan.
Right. And we do have to note that the Vulcans were all white passing, so
right.
That kind of thing, just adds more insult to it.
Well, later on, you get to Voyager, and there's Tuvok, who is a black Vulcan. And in that series, he's able to do the gesture because, coming from a black actor, it's very, very clearly not that meaning. So
right, I mean, he's retaking it,
Right, exactly.
He's allowed to do it. So, and that is true. Of all hate symbols, once the affected group retakes it, they're able to do it. You know?
Exactly. I'm still waiting for that to happen so we can all walk like an Egyptian again. But one day.
It's coming, Mitch.
So they have this whole 4-person like I said, reality TV show-esque competition of trials and to get to get into the academy because there's only one slot, and it starts off with like a series of tests, but then there's like a psychological evaluation where who knows what the hell this is supposed to be, because it's mostly just a very elaborately staged prank that they pull on Wesley. It's like, oh, you thought we were dying. We're not.
He's very, very scared of this evaluation. So much so that he seeks solace in Worf.
Yeah, what a bizarre scene that we're greeted to here, because this is the most dialogue that Worf has ever had up till this point, and obviously, last week we covered Michael Dorn's efforts to make that happen. This is the real fruit of that labor. It's kind of crazy how originally this, we mentioned the writers, they wanted to, like Worf or Michael Dorn so much, they stuck him with the stupid lines. That extended to this, where originally this was going to be a more erotic scene between Worf and Wesley, but, more iterations of the script that eventually got cut down. Now it's a lot of implied eroticism that we see on the screen.
Right.
The chemistry of those two characters. But Worf has multiple lines of dialogue uninterrupted, which, regardless of the content, by itself is like a significant thing for him.
Yeah, it's I don't even know what the word is, but it made me feel uncomfortable to hear Worf speak that much in season 1 here.
Right. It's like a time portal to season 3 or 5 or something.
Yeah. It's like we jumped forward.
And I think this is the first time we hear about like Klingon stuff. A key part of Worf's character is that, and if you're not a diehard fan, you might not know this, but Worf's a Klingon, and his culture comes up very, very often in later seasons once the writers got more comfortable giving him dialogue and lines and plot threads. Here we see it for the first time where Wesley's like, oh, you're a Klingon warrior, should be afraid of nothing, right? And then Worf drops some philosophy on him, but little seeds of what was to come, I think.
And again, I think I noted either last episode or the episode before that, but Worf's absence is very, very felt.
Yeah.
In this season, and his being made a more important character going forward is much appreciated, I think.
Yeah. Michael certainly appreciated it, but I think the audience does too. It always puts me off though to see him wearing a red shirt. Like, I can never really accept that. Worf is head of security. Yeah. That's his job. Yeah. We're not changing that.
Yeah, and who cares about the other head of security, honestly?
Right. Whoever that was.
Yeah. Right. I don't even remember.
Right. But Wesley, I love this scene. I really like it. You get Worf, which is great. And Wesley is a good foil to Worf his innocence and Worf's propensity to be a mentor.
Right.
Those things work together really well. So
yeah, and then you get the actual test, right, where Wesley has to pull a man out of a room that's going to be shut off and it's going to explode, or what?
I think there's like two men, and he can only pull out one.
Yeah, because the other guy is too scared to walk for some reason.
Right, but they're like, oh, Wesley, you have to make a choice because somebody made a choice about your dad, and you're afraid you could never make that choice.
Right. Which I think is fine. I think that's a solid.
It makes sense.
Element of his character for sure.
And Worf sets it up. He's like, they choose your psychological evaluation by analyzing your psychological profile and finding something that is really relevant and difficult for you. So, that checks out.
So solid stuff. I think a lot of the stuff going on with Wesley's side of the episode is pretty good. I mean, you have this little fight with the alien with the webbed fingers or whatever.
Well, before we get into that, because I got to talk about that, I just want to say that this psychological evaluation has the funniest moment of the episode to me when he's talking to his instructor, and his instructor's explaining to him like how he did. The door to the room with the disaster opens, and the guy Wesley thought was dead just kind of walks out, and he's all disheveled, and he just gives Wesley like a little nod, like, nice working with you, whatever. You thought I was dead, and you're probably traumatized. Nice working with you.
Yeah, he does give him a look, which was funny.
But this webbed fingers guy, that's another species that looks exactly like humans, but their fingers are webbed. I thought that was I thought that was a dream sequence when Wesley bumps into him, because that character's dialogue is so strange and so bizarre.
It's very stupid.
Yeah,
it's very stupid.
But
he's an alien.
And that as it came together, I'm like, okay, I guess. I'm trying to see in my notes if I wrote any of his dialogue down. Oh yes, he says like, "You blocked my path," which is really strange.
Yes, yeah, it is cheesy, but I appreciated Wesley kind of standing up for himself.
Yeah, but he's not even really standing up for himself when you think about it, because he knows that this is what this guy wants to hear.
He does choose the safe option. If he was really standing up for himself, he would have been very apologetic.
Right. So did you go through and pause frame by frame to see if you could see any webbing on that guy's hands?
I did not. I'm sure you did, though.
No, I didn't. That just occurred to me now.
I guess we better go check it out, because I do not remember that actor having any webbed hands at all or any prosthetics during filming. So
all right, so let's go check. I'll edit out the break, and we'll be right back. And we're back.
All right, yeah.
So we just checked, and there was not any webbing on that character's hands. So
which is, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's an insult.
The thing is, though, really. Like back at the time, we didn't have high definition, so the audience would not be able to tell without.
I guess it wouldn't have mattered. It was one of those things where you consider the cost of it, and it's like, is it really worth it?
Yeah, exactly.
Which, speaking of which, I liked the matte painting of the
base.
Cool, yeah. I
had like a little
just
smoke
perpetually
effect.
in love with. Yeah, I love the matte paintings in this show.
Yeah. I don't think they were made by somebody named Matt, but we can call them that.
No. I mean, they're called matte paintings because the original, like the first one, was made by Matt.
Oh, right, and everybody's copying his style.
Done in his style. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, but I love them.
Yeah,
so anytime
it's a relic of an old era of filmmaking, television.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's amazing when you think back, watching them on TV in much lower definition, how much better they looked. How much more they kind of blended in. Whereas now you see a matte painting and you know it's a matte painting, but they still look pretty decent.
They do. I mean,
Surprisingly,
it's more about admiring like the craftsmanship of the painting itself, whereas before it was a more of an effect that worked really well in the show itself. Had a certain amount of soul in those early days, standard definition.
Definitely. Now it's you might say it's soulless now.
Right. I would say that.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, but it certainly looks nice, and that whole thing at the school, the tests, the psychological evaluation, the relationships between Wesley and the other three candidates, really only two of them, work really well. I don't really have any complaints about any of that. It's just really good, and the fact that they really make you care about Wesley and you're invested in Wesley's story is a win.
Yeah, surprising. Very surprising. So I guess we've kind of talked to death about this side of the episode. So let's get back to the Enterprise, huh?
Well, on the Enterprise, we have one of the most creative uses of editing I've ever seen in this show. Where
actually, yes.
During the interrogation scenes, so it'll show like Remick talking to maybe Worf, then it'll cut back to Remick and he asks another question, which you assume is aimed at Worf, and then it pans over to show somebody else, like Riker or Crusher or whatever. And this happens several times in sequence, and it very fluidly cuts between all of these different characters getting interrogated, and it's so good. It's really good.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. The editing was very good, and I do have to say it made me think at this exact moment when they're going over all these previous exploits that we've seen over the course of the series so far. It felt very clip show like.
Right, and that's what the conception originally was for this idea. Someone comes on the ship, and because they have this pretext of investigating things, and they ask everybody about their previous adventures, and inside the interrogation, whenever a character would be asked about a previous incident, it would play clips to show the audience what happened. Gene wanted this as kind of like a victory lap for series 1 so far. Like, look at all this great stuff we did, all these great episodes we had. Like, look how great The Naked Now was. But nobody else was really on board with it. Just mostly because nobody thought Gene had earned that kind of thing. Like, Gene, your work was not this good.
Right.
And, I think it was Maurice who isolated the plot thread that set this up and made that its own thing. It's like, all right, well, this is a good idea of someone coming to investigate the Enterprise crew, and what can we do? Well, we have this other plot thread of the very first Benzite to join the Starfleet Academy, and let's tie these two together to make a whole episode.
Yeah, really good work. And I think those scenes were probably the highlight of the episode.
They were.
I liked seeing seeing Worf in that chair. I liked Crusher's scene where she's like, it's none of your business.
None of your goddamn business.
Everyone's kind of coming together to support the captain.
Right.
It's interesting though because Remick speaks with every character, every member of the crew, except
for one.
Except for one, and that's Tasha Yar.
As always.
So, around this time, TNG was kind of starting to become a more, I guess, professional sort of production, right? So the writers' room was fairly unanimous in the opinion that writing a scene for Denise that put her up close and personal with the camera would be damaging to the show's reputation, to say the least.
Yeah. And standard definition can mask over a matte painting, but it's not going to protect you from Denise.
Right, and even more so now that we've made the jump to digital. that was some good future proofing, I think, on their part.
Right. Imagine if we were rewatching it for our rewatch podcast, and we had to see high definition on Netflix, just Denise dominating the frame. Wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, I don't think I can make it through the episode.
No. It's viewer discretion is advised. Look away.
But so it turns out that Remick and his admiral here had shut down the entire Enterprise for God knows how long, because the admiral is a member of QAnon, and thinks there's a grand conspiracy, right?
Right. I wasn't quite sure what exactly they were talking about with this.
It doesn't make any sense in this episode. This does tie into the penultimate episode of the season, by which point, I don't want to spoil it for the audience who's watching for the first time. It does kind of clarify a few things, but it also makes the entire thing just so much more stupid.
And this thing already made itself stupid, by the way. With the way it ends.
Yeah. So, in and of itself, it doesn't make any sense. There's no reason that whatever Remick did would have found any proof or evidence that Picard was compromised in any way.
Right. I mean, the biggest lead that he might have had was asking Data if anything had been falsified, and that could have panned out. Because Data wouldn't lie about that. He's just not programmed to. He literally can't.
Mm-hmm.
So that made sense. But then he's like, "Are you sure, Data?" And Data's like, "Of course I am." Why would I fucking lie to you?
Right. Yeah.
And at that point, that should have been it. In fact, he should have walked onto the ship, said, "Data, can I talk to you?" And spent like 5 minutes and then concluded his investigation.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah. And we're treated to the possibility of two character departures this episode, right? You have I almost said Will. You have Wesley joining the Academy, and you have Picard being offered to become the head of the Academy, right?
Right. Which could have been the Academy spinoff featuring those two.
It actually could have been, yeah. In this day and age, it would have been.
Right.
It is ridiculous to say, I need friends in high places, and then make the captain of one of the biggest starships in the Federation a literal teacher. But
I think he would be a principal.
Well, he'd be a principal, but whatever. Were we ever, as an audience, were we ever even entertaining the idea that these two characters were going to leave?
No, neither of them were named Tasha Yar, so.
Yeah, you knew starting the episode that Wesley would not make it into the Academy and Picard would not become the head of the Academy. Which I really cannot stand.
I don't mind Wesley's thing so much, because Wesley kind of he demonstrates his worth and he shows his character by helping the people around him, and that
I think you're right.
That's fine. Picard's thing though is really dumb because there's that moment where Riker goes into his office and he's like, "Oh, you got a promotion, congratulations!" And then Picard just looks at him, and Riker's like, "Are you not going to take it?" And Picard's like, "I don't know. I'm going to go for a walk." And at that point, that's when it crosses into dumb. If Picard had just been pretty upfront, it's like, "No, of course I can't take it. My work here is too important." And then it's not like this question mark that is exceedingly obvious. But yeah,
I guess that would have been like a solid, this early, it would have been a solid character moment where you see Picard cares more about doing his duty in the way that he thinks he can do it best than prestige, or anything like that. So yeah, I agree. That is where it crosses the line into kind of stupid.
Look forward to
and-
the
and-
next iteration of this plot point where Picard has to choose to go gallivanting with his ex-archaeology professor.
That's
in like
right.
6
that's
years.
Right. I think when you get to the point of like best of both worlds, it does kind of become like a question mark where it's like, Patrick Stewart, has been signed onto the show for a few years, and maybe he's just grown tired of it.
Right.
That's where it starts to become a question.
That had the benefit of being a season finale.
Exactly.
Whereas,
yeah.
okay, yeah, maybe someone's contract is up at this point. I can buy this. Of course,
Right.
never does it come to that. At no point in the series.
But let's not get too far into that, lest we risk spoiling anything. So Picard goes on a walk, right, and he goes to see Wesley in the meeting room. What did you think of that scene?
I don't have strong feelings about it. I thought it was fine that Picard, wasn't like disappointed in Wesley, that he's giving him this thing, you're just competing against yourself, as long as you'll do better next time and make an improvement. I don't think that's so bad. I had the impression that Picard was lying to Wesley about himself failing the first time. He's like, I gotta make this kid feel better. I also failed my first exam.
Right. Which do we see anything? I mean, I know we jumped to the past a couple of times in this series. Do we see anything about him in the academy?
Yeah, we see.
We don't, do we?
No, we see him. I think maybe as soon as he's graduated, or maybe it's in his final year. But it's when he gets his heart stabbed. And
that's right. That's
Tapestry.
right. Yeah. So he's already well in there by then.
Right.
Yeah. So it could be canon. It could be not canon. I guess we'll have to check out the novels for this, right?
Right. That would be in My First Year was the name of that one.
Mm-hmm. Yes. By who was that?
Was that Sandra? Sandra Stone?
Sandra Stone. Right.
Yeah.
My First Year by Sandra. That's right.
We're big fans of
that
the
was a
Trek
good one.
novels here.
Yeah. Definitely go and read those, especially that one. I mean, after this episode, now that you get some context.
Right.
So one thing in that scene, when Picard and Wesley are walking out of the room, and Picard says, "I have to disappoint an old friend."
Yeah.
Was that line 8-yard?
I think it was. It had to have been. You don't. Here's a little television secret for all you guys out there. If a character's back is ever to the camera, there's like a 95% chance their dialogue is ADR.
You can just tell from the audio quality,
right,
between the previous discussion. It's just so obvious, and that really took me out of it. But also taking me out of this episode was the scene, which I believe immediately followed that, where they're sending the Admiral off, and the Admiral laughs and says, "Perhaps I see conspiracies everywhere."
Yeah, that's what confused me the most. That line.
So I guess we just upended the entire Enterprise for a whole day for no reason.
Well, I think I think the conspiracy was the pretext of just all he wanted was to get Picard to be the principal, because he's like, "Oh, I thought you'd be good for this job, but I just need to make sure you're on the level." So
that's
he's
an
like,
interesting way to look at it.
Right. He's like, "There's no real conspiracy. This is just my pretext for evaluating you." And he's like, "I see conspiracies everywhere, so I'll find another one on another captain's ship, and I'll ask him to do it once I finish evaluating him."
That's an interesting way to look at it, and I would love to accept that is what he meant by all this. If not for the episode that's coming up soon that completely destroys
that theory.
But for all we know, I mean, obviously we weren't in the writers' room at the time, so for all we know, that could have been what the original intent was.
Yeah, and it could have been like, "Oh, that's an interesting idea for a plot thread. I'll just use that," even though the context was a little off.
Right, exactly.
There's also the conclusion of Remek's arc where he's like, everybody on this ship's a really good friend, and I want to work here too. Goodbye.
Yeah. And don't worry, we will see the conclusion of Remek's arc soon.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Does he get killed by a tar monster?
Well, we'll see.
Oh, baby.
His name doesn't rhyme with tar, so think of the things that rhyme with Remek, and you'll figure out what he got killed by.
Systemic racism?
Getting close.
Well, we'll get there when we get there.
We will.
Any final thoughts on this episode?
Good episode, I think. I think it doesn't hit any major snags, actually.
No.
I think it's one of the more competent episodes this season. I love it, actually, compared to the rest of them.
I disagree in that I think the scene with the shuttle is a bit of snag, but that would be the only one. Everything else kind of works out well, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty light episode though. Like we talked about thematic content in other ones, and I don't think this episode has much of a theme.
No, it doesn't. Well, it does, but I guess it doesn't really beat you over the head with it. I mean, there's that idea of kind of accepting when things don't really go your way on Wesley's side, because you have his peer who doesn't get in, right. And then he flies the shuttle out, and then he has to accept the consequences of that and accept that he has to get on with his life in some other way. And then Wesley, who doesn't pass, who has to accept that he has to continue trying to get in, basically.
To me, I was looking more for connections between Picard and Wesley, because both of them are kind of being evaluated in this episode.
Yeah, that's true.
But they don't approach it the same way at all, and it doesn't play out.
They are entirely unrelated,
right?
Which I think is fine.
Yeah,
I don't think
it is.
I don't think Trek approaches its peak when the A and B plots are unrelated like that, but I don't think it's inherently bad.
No, speaking solely from the search for thematic content and connections, it's all I'm saying. Otherwise, right. I think those two things work just fine in isolation.
Right.
So yeah, I don't have this as among my favorite episodes so far, but it's like a solid 65th percentile.
Interesting. Yeah, no, this is up there, I think. I think I really like this one.
Well, I should also keep my expectations in check, where it's like, oh yeah, it's a pretty good episode, is probably like, top 4 season 1.
Yeah, exactly. All right, you ready for my question?
I am ready for your question. I studied. Right.
Okay.
If you're going to ask me about the ratio of matter to antimatter, I have that one covered. That's the question that they ask in.
That was the question I was going to ask you, Mitch.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, hold on.
What is it?
Just ask me.
All right. If the matter and antimatter tanks on a Galaxy-class starship are 9/10 depleted, calculate the intermixed ratio necessary to reach a starbase.
Okay, so I think that this one's a bit of
100 years away.
Okay.
At warp factor 8.
8, huh? So I think this one's a bit of a trick question, because if it's matter and antimatter, those must always cancel each other out. So those should exist in a 1-to-1 ratio.
Must be nice having things come so naturally to you, Mitch.
Doesn't come naturally. I had to study for that one. Now,
it's a good thing you're cute, Mitch, or you can really be obnoxious.
Now, if you want to ask me to align my my energy grid, that might be a bit more difficult for me.
Well, no, you'll tell me first. You tell me how to do it first, and I'm getting into the academy.
I appreciate the fact that Wesley was both ahead of the Benzite in doing it, but also slower than him in that he couldn't finish it before the other guy who did not know how to do it.
It's like he could have done both at the same time. He could have finished it while telling him how to do it. Like, that's not how the brain works.
Right. And he is not shown like, oh, looking away from his console. He's still working the entire time he talks to him.
Yeah.
Unsubscribed. Terrible episode.
Yep. I think that's the last episode we're watching.
Yeah, this is the end of the Readier Room. And until then, everybody, please stay readier.
The troublesome little man-child.
Consider that in the history of many worlds, there have always been disposable creatures.
Do you consider yourself superior to us?
Should have told him to mind his own damn business.
But I stroked the beard thusly. Do I not appear more intellectual?
Computer! Freeze program.
It's not a promising beginning.